It's a Tuesday afternoon outside Austin, Texas, and Mike pulls his Model 3 up to a supercharger, taps his phone twice, and starts scrolling while the screen ticks past 40 kilowatt hours. He barely glances at the total, $11, less than a fast food meal. 5,000 miles away at a rest stop just off the Autobahn outside of Frankfurt, I'm doing the exact same thing. Plug in, wait, glance at the screen, except the number climbing on my screen isn't $11. For a comparable charge, it's the equivalent of nearly $50. If you ever assumed that charging an electric car in Europe is basically free because gas over here costs $7 or $8 a gallon, I get it. That's the story everyone tells. But charging isn't gas. It runs through a completely different set of prices, taxes, and network rules. And today I'm showing you the actual receipt because what I paid this week genuinely surprised me. I'm Justin, and I've lived in Germany for over 12 years now. This channel is about the cost nobody puts on a postcard, the real numbers, not the guesses. And if you're new here, hit subscribe, because we do this every week. Here's the myth. Gas is expensive in Europe, so electricity for your car must be cheap. Obvious upgrade. Here's the reality. On public, fast chargers, Germany is often not cheaper than the US. In a lot of real-world cases, it's close to double. Now, before the comments come for me, let's steel man the other side, because there's a real case here. Germany's public charging network is dense, especially along the Autobahn. Every charger by law has to let you pay by card with no subscription and no app required, something a lot of US networks still don't guarantee everywhere. And gasoline here is still brutally expensive, so even pricey electricity usually beats it. All of that is true. It just doesn't mean charging itself is cheap. Those are two different questions. Start with public fast charging, because that's where the biggest gap is. In the US, Tesla superchargers average somewhere around 30 to 45 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on the state. Pricier in California or the Northeast, cheaper in low-cost states. In Germany, the two biggest fast charging networks, Ionity and ENBV, charge walk-up customers with no subscription anywhere from 59 cents to 79 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's before tax. Which brings me to this week's actual bill. I plugged in at a public fast charger and paid 63 cents per kilowatt hour, plus 19% value-added tax on top. That works out to about 75 cents a kilowatt hour once the tax hits. Call it 86 US cents at today's exchange rate. Compare that to a US supercharger at the high end, say 58 cents, and I still paid nearly 50% more. Compare it to the US average, and I paid almost double. Now, the honest caveat. And this is where subscriptions come in. Sign up for a monthly plan, and the per kilowatt hour price drops hard. Ionity's subscription brings the price down from 79 cents to around 35 cents, and about 13 euros a month. ENBV has a similar deal. So, a driver who plans ahead and pays a monthly fee can get close to or even beat US supercharger pricing. But that's the problem nobody puts in the headline. The price you pay if you just plug in and go, no subscription, is dramatically higher here. Home charging tells a similar story, just with smaller numbers. The average German household pays somewhere around 32 to 37 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity, and some pay as much as 42 cents on the basic default utility rate. In the US, the national average residential rate is under 19 cents per kilowatt hour. Even charging overnight in your own garage, Germans are typically paying close to double what Americans pay before anyone gets near a public charger. Part of that gap is tax. Germany layers 19% value-added tax onto essentially every retail electricity purchase, public or private, on top of some of the highest grid and network fees in Europe. In the US, tax on electricity is usually lower or doesn't apply the same way, and it's typically baked into the posted price rather than added visibly at checkout. Let's put real numbers on a real trip. Say you need to add 200 miles of range. At a typical US supercharger, that's roughly 57 kilowatt hours at around 45 cents. Call it $26. At a German fast charger, paying walk-up like I did this week, that same 200 miles costs around $49. Even on ENBV's discounted subscription plan, you're still around $51. There's no version of this where the US public charging bill comes out higher. Zoom out to a full month. An average driver covering 1,000 miles charging mostly at home needs around 285 kilowatt hours. In the US, at the national average rate, that's about $54. In Germany, at the average household rate, that's roughly 97 euros. Call it just over $112. Lean on public fast charging instead of home charging for the same distance, and the German number climbs even higher, while the US gap stays comparatively small. Here's where it gets interesting though. None of that makes an EV a bad deal in Germany, because the number you're actually replacing isn't the American electricity bill, it's German gasoline. Gas here regularly runs $6 to $7 a gallon. So even at double the American charging price, an EV in Germany usually still beats driving a gas car per mile. The US just has a bigger cheap fuel cushion on both sides, cheap gas and cheap electricity. So the financial case for going electric is a smaller margin than it is over here. Cheaper than gas, yes. Cheaper than American electrons? No. If you're actually bringing a car onto German roads, charging costs are only part of the bill. You are legally required to carry car insurance here too. And getting quoted as a foreigner isn't always straightforward. I'll drop a link below to a provider I actually use. So back to Mike and me. Mike paid $11 and didn't think twice. I paid the equivalent of around $50 for a comparable session, taxes included, on a network with no subscription. Same technology, same car, wildly different bill. For once, this is one of those episodes where the postcard version of Europe, cheap, green, effortless, doesn't hold up against the actual receipt. If you're driving electric in Germany, get a charging subscription before you first hit the road. 13 euros a month can cut your per kilowatt hour cost nearly in half. Charge at home whenever you can, because even at German household rate, it's still far cheaper than any public fast charger, subscribed or not. Stop comparing German charging prices to American ones, and start comparing them to German gas prices, because that's the trade-off that actually decides whether an EV makes sense here. And check a network comparison app before a long drive, because prices vary enough between operators that picking the right charger can save you real money on a single trip. Mike's still out there tapping his phone, not thinking about it. I've started checking the price screen before I plug in, every single time. That's Germany for you. Not always the cheapest story, just a different one. And one more cost nobody puts on a postcard. If you want more of these real number breakdowns, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.